Perfect. Alright. First of all, holy shit, that looks incredible. So it's not just textures that they're updating, they're updating like the shaders, which I'm a game developer myself, and that takes a lot of underlying work to the engine itself to update shaders like this. You can see, though, that they didn't update the body yet. You can see the line. It's just for the face. They updated the shaders so far, it seems. Let's see. Final Fantasy XIV has been running with largely the same engine since its relaunch as A Realm Reborn in 2013. That's nearly a decade of operation. In that time, we've moved on from the PlayStation 3 and old video cards to the PlayStation 5 and NVIDIA RTX cards. It's a huge jump in graphical potential that Final Fantasy XIV hasn't really tapped into. Agreed. During tonight's live letter from the producer, the creative director and lead producer Yoshi P announced the first major graphical update for the game. The update is coming in patch 7.0 and beyond, so it's a ways off, about a year away, if they follow the same expansion release cycle that they have been. It should come out next time, November-ish. But the team at Square Enix has begun testing some of the new visuals. Character appearance updates, primary features and goals, higher resolution textures, so that includes hair, skin, gear, etc. Improved material qualities, skin, material, metal, fabric, etc. Better lighting and shadow effects. Great. So we'll be able to, what would be really cool is if you could like carry a lantern that casted shadows and stuff in darker dungeons. How fucking awesome would that be? Better lighting and shadow effects, especially for player shadows, etc. Overall appearance of player characters will be altered as little as possible. That's good. Yeah, I want to look the same, just better. Will be applied to old NPCs where possible from 7.x onward. Okay. So yeah, one of the first thing that popped into my mind was how are like the elephant people gonna look? Because, and non-humanoids, because this is a pretty standard, like, it looks like an Unreal Engine 4 skin shader. With subsurface scattering, you can see the subsurface and how the skin fades into the shadow. There's this little small tint right here. It gives it that more realistic focus. Especially in the ears, the crevices within the ears itself. They're a bit deeper shadows, and they're lighter lights and lower lows to give a lot more range of color on the skin. Testing for additional improvements will continue in the future. Yoshida said that the team wanted to address the overall picture of Final Fantasy XIV, improving graphics while not changing the game's current aesthetic. Perfect. He also wanted players to know that the new graphics will not be comparable to standalone titles. Of course, it's an MMO. They still have to make it for a much wider audience, and they have to render a lot more characters than a standalone title has. For example, Final Fantasy VII, I think there's like a max limit of like 8 characters that can be on the screen at the same time, or something really, really small. Otherwise, the performance will just plummet. For those expecting Final Fantasy XIV to look like first-party single-player games like Horizon Forbidden West, which was mentioned by name. So yeah. Definitely not expecting like a Final Fantasy VII remake type of thing, but honestly, this does look fan-fucking-tastic. In this particular screenshot, it looks pretty close, honestly. Like, obviously, it doesn't look quite as good, but it's pretty damn close, and it's a huge upgrade from where we're coming from. The system requirements for PC will be updated with the changes, but support for the PS4 version will... Oh, they will remain support for PlayStation 4 version. Interesting. They said the team will be optimizing the PS4 version. My free company, they were talking about, they think that they might drop support for the PlayStation 4 version. But I mean, if the PlayStation 4 can handle Final Fantasy VII, I don't see why it couldn't handle this. For sure. Especially if they plan on doing more optimizations to it. I don't know how Final Fantasy XIV runs on the PlayStation 4, because I've only ever played it on PC, so I don't really have much knowledge in that regard. But yeah, I'm glad that they will still remain supporting PS4s, especially because PS5s are still so fucking hard to get a hold of, even 2 or 3 years after they come out. So I'm glad that that's a very smart business decision for them to keep all their PlayStation 4 players. It will also receive new graphical options like frame rate or resolution priority modes. Perfect. So, okay. Let's see. So they might actually keep the old textures. Let's see. Oh no, this is just for PS5 port. Never mind. So yeah, let's take a look at these. So yeah, the human we saw up above, it looks fucking great. Or the here. And then there's the main character. The hair looks a little bit better. I think they could still do a little bit more work with the hair, but the face, the facial hair texture looks fan-fucking-tastic. And you can see that they added more polygons to it. So if we zoom in... Oh my god, that didn't work. Let me open this in a new tab. So if you zoom in, you can actually see, especially right here at the tip of his nose. Oh, maybe not. Yeah, you can still see the polygon edges here. Never mind, they might not actually be improving the meshes at all, but just the textures and shading. Yeah, when I was zoomed out, it's a lot more noticeable. The polygon edges are a lot more noticeable in the left than the right, but yeah, if you zoom in, it looks like they will remain the same. So, same polygon count, it seems. Let's check out the cat girls. Oh yeah, beautiful. Yeah, look at the amount of range that you have between the lighter part and the darker part now. There's just so much more range, giving it a much more realistic look to it. Looks good. Yeah, I think the hair, it looks like they... It's hard to tell. The mesh obviously is the same. But I can't tell if they updated the texture or not. Maybe they just made it a little bit higher resolution, the texture. Because yeah, there's an obvious difference in the hair. Let me bring this one up. And you can see some weird ridges right here that aren't present over here. Overall, it's the same mesh, but I believe a higher resolution texture to get that alpha transparency. You can have it much more light and subtle in some areas without getting these weird ridges in them. And then the Lalafells. Ooh, the eye textures actually look different too. Oh yeah, I didn't even look at the eyes. The eyes look a lot different and a lot more improved. Look at that. Wow. That's incredible. And yeah, you can definitely see the subsurface scattering within the ear. After fake tease showing the standard here with realistic lighting and skin, Yoshida said realism isn't the focus of the updates. The changes are mostly aimed at textures, lighting, and shaders, allowing the team to make existing models and environments look much better. So right now they feel like some of their creative team feels limited by their technology, and they're wanting to improve that to give their creative team much more options available to them. Yoshida then showed off some early screenshots. Examples included close-ups of the standard male here, another with stubble, a female Mikode, a male Rogadin, and a female Lalafell, all with higher resolution textures and shaders. The difference is striking, especially considering that the models remain the same. Yoshida said self-cast shadows were one key point here, allowing the shadows from the hair and facial features to be rendered in higher quality. Yep, you can definitely notice the difference there. So self-cast shadows. So yeah. Well, it looks like the original one does cast self-shadows. You can see the hair casting onto the face. So they're just talking about the resolution of self-cast shadows, I guess. Yeah. One key point. Perfect. And then, yeah, let's bring up the facial hair again. Yeah, the facial hair looks so fucking good. 1 second. Anyway, the graphical update isn't just for the characters, though. There will be higher resolution textures coming to gear as well. Better shaders to mimic materials like metal, cloth, and leather, and improved lighting across the board. So yeah, they're going into a full PBR, which is a physically based rendering system, which, let's see if we can pull up an example. Example. So yeah, here's example of a traditional shader versus a PBR shader. Notice how you can get reflections and things like that to give it a much more realistic look. So physically based shaders, they actually take the environment around them into consideration for the rendering of colors, shadows, and reflections and things like that. So that's what they're talking about. Let's see. So that'll impact huge things, like metal will be the biggest thing impacted by that. These changes aren't coming to all gear immediately. Square Enix will focus on popular glamour first, and then gradually roll out further updates in 7.x patches. Okay. That's an... Okay, so the gear won't be all affected, but I believe the characters will probably be affected immediately. Just not all the gear. Some of these graphical improvements are also aimed at the game's environments. Yoshida showed before and after shots of the Studium, Titania, and one area in Thavner. Let's check this out. Ooh, let's look at Titania. Oh my god, it's tiny. Let's look at that. Oh my god. It looks gorgeous. Yeah, so you can see the physically based shaders, they're taking into account the different lighting colors, the reds and greens, and projecting them onto her familiar as well as her dress. So yeah, looking fan-fucking-tastic. Let's take a look at the next one. Yeah, it looks a lot more like gold and a lot less like PlayStation 3 graphics, to be honest. Ah, so they're actually updating some of the world meshes too, it seems. So this isn't just a shader change for this. They have actually changed the mesh here. But yeah, the image quality itself is kind of low, so it's hard to tell. Overall, you can see some differences. But this picture isn't the greatest example. I think the Titania is a fantastic example, and of course, any type of metal is just going to look significantly better in a PBR shading environment. Another set of changes are based on optimization of the game's engine. Animations will see a great deal of improvement. Longer emotes. Okay, that would be fun. There was also a scene in Thavner's port town of Yedlamad showing off how improvements in optimization will allow the team to add more objects. So more object density means more trees, more grass. Yeah, that looks great. The blades of grass look so much fucking better. Holy shit. The most stunning improvement is the grass, yeah. Which is currently automatically generated by the engine. Grass in Final 14 has bothered him for some time. True. Yeah, grass and foliage is one of the lowest quality things, I think, that are in Final Fantasy 14. If you zoom in on a flower or something, it looks absolutely awful, which, I mean, I can't blame them. It's an MMO made 10 years ago. It was made to run on a PlayStation 3, so, with hundreds of people on the screen. So it is what it is, but I'm glad that we're getting these graphics updates. Let's see. Experimenting with other graphical improvements like fog and ambient occlusion. Okay. So if we get exponential height fog, that allows us to get a lot of like god rays and stuff that are casted off of lights other than the sun. So let me pull up an example of exponential height fog. So it gives it this overall dreamy effect, and it adds to realism a lot more. So you can see these god rays when you're not directly staring at the sun, essentially. And not only can the sun project these god rays, but they can also be casted off of point lights or spotlights. For example, a flashlight or a lantern. Let's see if we can find an example of a flashlight. So like here's a real world picture, but this is a good example. So like these beams of light that come off of the light. Light, you cannot directly see itself. What these beams are is not the light itself, but it's particles in the air, dust, fog, etc. It's light being cast onto them, and that's what creates these this beam particle effect. And so adding improved fog into the game, especially if it's a type of exponential height fog, they'll be able to do so much with it, and it'll drastically improve things like atmosphere and environmental storytelling and things like that. And so I don't know about you guys, but I am super excited to see what their creative team can come up with these improvements to the engine itself. Anyway, let's get back to the game now.